Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talks at Google. I'm Kevin Velk, and today we have the creative team behind Sony's animation masterpiece, The Mitchells versus the Machines. So we'll bring them on in just a second here, but really quickly, we'll be taking audience questions here in just a few minutes after we get through the line of questioning. So all the questions, you can just go and drop them on the right-hand side of the screen or in the chat window, and we'll be sure to answer them later in the talk. So let's go ahead and bring them on in. We have Michael Rianda.
Hello.
Hey, everybody. Who is the director, co-writer, and voice of Katie's brother, Aaron, in the movie. We have Jeff Rowe, writer and co-director of the film. Woo! There he is. And then we have Lindsey Olivares, from who is the production designer and lead character designer, and Guillermo Martinez, head of story. Hi, everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, baby.
Thank you all so much for joining. I know, like I said a little bit before, I know it's been a long time in production. It's about 6 years, and you guys are on the press junket and leading up to the Oscars here. So, but the film, congrats on it, because it's been obviously well loved by millions and millions of people. It's been nominated in every award possible, it seems like, most notably Best Animated Feature for the upcoming Oscars, but also you pretty much swept the Annie Awards in every category, from Best Animated Feature to Animated Effects, Character Design, Directing, Production Design, Writing, Editing, Voice Acting. So it just seems, it's incredible. So I love the film.
To list them all. It makes us feel really good.
Well, it's underappreciated categories. Yeah, no, they are. That's what I love about the Annies too, is that you guys get the recognition that you all deserve. Yeah. But yeah, it's such a unique and specific and what seems very, very personal film, but at the same time, it's very, very relatable and very universally loved, it seemed like, by so many people. So Mike, kind of starting with you, because I know it kind of started with your idea and this kind of personal story of yours. Where did this kind of first idea generate? How did you get on board with Sony and bringing this story to life?
Yeah, no, I mean, the exciting thing about Sony is that it was sort of a open, it's a kind of open season. There was no formula, and there was no anything. There was no rules, basically. So it was like, we can make a movie about anything. Can it be about my parents and robots? And they're like, sure, I don't know, whatever. This is nothing made. And I was like, okay. So that was really cool. And then it was also just amazing to be able to say, okay, well, maybe can the characters be as specific and unique as my parents, as my family, and can the movie look as specific and unique as Lindsey's drawings that we love, that we were trying to replicate, and these James Turrell paintings or James Turrell installations that we love and stuff, and so basically from every category we were just sort of super excited to be able to do something new. And everyone on this call, it is their first time doing the job they did. So we are all trust falling together, where it's like we're skydiving, when you see people skydiving on a plane, but they're all holding hands. That was kind of like us. And it's like, and I'm like, are we wearing parachutes? I don't even know. But
we were sewing the parachutes as we fell.
It's true. We were sewing the parachutes as we were falling. And luckily these three have strong hands and steady eyes to thread the needles while I'm screaming. But yeah, no. So it was and just in terms of the family and stuff, we were just trying to be, come at the world from a place of really deep observation, and what people's houses, my house looks like this. You know what I mean? It's not a model home. And dads aren't just guys who drink coffee and read the newspaper. They're weirdo. I think if all of us told stories about our dads, they would be 5 of the wildest stories you've ever heard, because dads are maniacs. So we're trying to sort of get at the truth of all that stuff. And it started with my family, but as Jeff, brings his sort of love of dinosaurs in, and Guillermo brings his sort of cinematic thunder, and Lindsey brings in I drew on my pants when I was a kid, so maybe Katie can do that. So it's basically all of us kind of came together to make it more universal than just being a weird movie about my family.
Yeah, well, let's bring up your family photo here.
There they are, baby.
Amazing.
The on the top right, you'll see the duality, which is my aunt, who is very effervescent and friendly and is always trying to make everyone happy, and then my mom, who's like teeth clenched, rage in her heart, who would like come at you like a freight train if you were like, oh, your son can't be in Mr. Frederick's third grade class, and she's like, Mr. Fredericks is the best teacher in third grade class. My son's gonna be in there. It's like easy lady. So that's where her rage comes from, and then that's my dad, who looks exactly like Rick on the
looks exactly like Rick. And then if we can go to the next one, which is the Mitchell's house, which Lindsey, I think you could talk a little bit about this, but kind of alluding to what Mike was saying, which was it's not a model home, it's kind of what we all grew up in, and kind of this mess, kind of natural, organic kind of family home.
Yeah, like at the forefront, we're telling a movie that's like specifically this family, the Mitchell family, but it's humans and imperfect humans versus like perfect technology and these robots. So with everything, we're trying to tell the story of that. And so we never wanted like humans, whether it's their design or their spaces, to feel cool or appealing because of something that was perfect or clean or organized or the latest trend and everything in sync. We kind of reserve some of that perfection for our tech space, and the human space. It's just all about this. It's like hoping that we could be really specific and leave signs of life, and in that specificity that people could see themselves in it. And so we were just kind of, trying to be really character specific, but making it feel really, really lived in. So that presence of human life is really there. And then additionally, just being really human about like our mark making. The lines are kind of imperfect. We're not like using the computer tools to make straight, perfect lines, and we're leaving mark making in. So these are early exploration for finding what their space is like.
Yeah, and I love, like, I'm looking at that fan, and I'm looking at some of the things on the floor and the lazy boy chair and everything, and very, very true to the home that I also grew up in. So I love it. So
thank you.
No, I was going to ask, like, what did you use as those reference points? Was it collecting family photos from folks, or looking online, any films?
I think from starting it, part of it is like looking around my own life, and finding where it aligns with what Mike was doing in the storytelling. And so there's things like I could look up in my room and see that like some of my light bulbs are burnt out and I haven't replaced them, or like maybe they're different one. And there's all these things that like you see, and maybe sometimes for me, I feel like I can't keep up with things, or I might be frustrated with the mess or whatever I have. But I feel like I'd look around and be like, oh yeah, like we have this bulk size thing of toilet paper and just like sitting here, I don't know where to put it. And then I was like, well, let's put those into the images. So a lot of those things were kind of looking around. And then part of it's just being really narrative about it. Like they've got this dog and he's kind of a weirdo. Is he like in that bedroom painting, which isn't quite in the movie, but it's like, oh, is he digging at the wall? I had a dog that did that. Munchie's always chewing on things. Maybe that makes sense. And so you kind of have these really clear ideas for who these characters are. So you'll start kind of telling little stories. And sometimes that's like self-reflective of things you've seen that aligns with them. And then specifically too, I'd find like Craigslist was a place that I would go. I remember at one point working with our art team, and they were doing the kind of final design for the house. And I remember realizing if you search online for like rugs or sofas, you'll end up getting something that's available now. And so it's like, how do you find that other level of specificity? So we'd find, what if we go on Craigslist? The movie's set in Michigan. So I'm going to go to Michigan, search couches, and see like, these are going to be examples of what people have right now. And it's usually not always the latest thing. It's something you've had for a while. And we kind of leaned into that love of it. You might have something that's old because it's generational or it's given to you. Or so what's that way of having a lens that's character first, that has that love of these things that you might be like, oh, I don't have the latest trend, or I don't have this, but like that's kind of it doesn't matter, or there's more beauty in the heart family story. And so we'd lean into stuff like that. So it came from a lot of different places. Sometimes it's Facebook, sometimes it's photos of Mike's family, sometimes it's photos of a friend. And so it's just trying to find the realest places so it feels the most observational as possible.
Yeah, and while we're talking about kind of the visual design and language of the story and stuff, the visionaries, the incredible visionaries of Phil Lord and Christopher Miller, who worked on the Spideyverse films and Jump Street and Last Man on Earth and Lego movies, and they've been in animation. All of you have been in animation for so long as well. They've helped produce this film. Was there anything what did they really bring to this in terms of anything from story or particularly production design? When you see something like Spider-Verse, what I love about Spider-Verse is that it completely blew animation away, right? Like it took everything that we love with comic books and brought that into this animated look and feel. And then when I saw the look of this film, I saw some of the production art before they did the trailer, and I saw the trailer. I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't seen this before. It's mixing 2D and 3D, and it's mixing in all these kind of weird, just wonderful, hand-drawn kind of pieces in this world together. How did that all come together, and kind of what did Chris and Phil also bring to it from their experience working on Spider-Verse?
There was no idea that was like too crazy for them. There was like I mean, one, there was a tone setting thing where it's just like push it further. Everything you do, go bigger, make it different. You're not gonna win the game the game being making a successful film by playing it safe or shaving edges off or censoring or editing yourself. So it was really this just like top down encouragement to be different and take risks, and that was insanely helpful. And then also they have the track record and success and studio savvy and experience to guide us through that, because it's like it's also great to have those ideas and take those risks, but you need someone to back that up to the people who are spending millions of dollars making the movie. And they were really good partners in protecting the weirder aspects of the film and saw those as features, not bugs, and really advocated for us as artists and creatives.
And Mike, it didn't seem like, I mean, going kind of back to what you had said earlier, it didn't seem like the studio said no to much, because it seemed like that you guys threw everything at this. Like I kept watching the film, and everything I saw, whether it was like the picture frame that still had the photo in it from the store, or the Katie's videos, like all these little things and all these little touches. I'm like, no other studio would touch this. Like I love that Sony is doing stuff like Hotel Trans or does stuff like Spider-Verse, and I'm like, oh gosh, where do they take it now, and how do they push animation? I see something like this, and it's incredible that you were able to push the studio on that and kind of just do not whatever you wanted, but what made sense for the story, and push technology and the art form along.
Totally. No, and it's like that was one of our insane goals. We're like, can we push animation forward? Question mark. There's a lot of like question marks in our manifestos. But no, and I think that Lindsey and the art team and everybody working the movie really did just really kind of amazing. I feel like I can say that because I felt like I don't have anything to do with it besides cheerleading. But it was also funny too, because like Phil, I just remember Phil being in a review session once and seeing the final color come back for the big Furby, and he's like, "Hey Mike, don't tell anyone we didn't give you what you wanted, huh, bud?" But one thing about those guys and about sort of the process of the movie that we learned, and I think is like germane to software and everything that you guys are doing at Google, is like we learned from Chris and Phil and also from our own experience, but those guys really added rocket fuel. Like, go way further. If you have an idea, do the most complete, craziest version of it possible first, and then see what that gets you, instead of like inching forward and like, oh, if Katie draws on the screen, maybe there's a little squiggle in the corner, and they're like, no. Go bananas first, and then you can pull back and sort of see like, oh, is that too far? Because like that's what one of the things they said on Spider-Verse, like break it first. Like don't show us like version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Show us version 25, and then we could go from there. And it's really interesting. Like that way of working, I think, is really valuable because it forces you to be bold and go places that you wouldn't go otherwise. And those are all things that we wanted to do. But sometimes, like it was, since it was our first time, we thought we were gonna get thrown into movie jail. Like, can we draw? Lock up for that? And they're like, no, nobody cares as long as it works.
Right.
And that's the thing. It's like, as long as it has this, like, you know, because the movie is really kind of like classically structured as this, you know, father-daughter movie. And it's like very, like, all the emotional beats are there and stuff like that. So it's like, if you are doing the work to tell the classical story right, you can be really innovative in how you tell it.
Yeah, and Guillermo, since you're head of story, and you're not just writing this obviously and working with this, but you're also trying to keep, I imagine, like, things making sense and keeping the things like pulling all these pieces together and stuff. Can you talk about how your kind of relationship, your work dynamic between Mike, Jeff, like you're working have all these pieces while writing it and trying to make everything kind of cohesive and work together from a story perspective?
Yeah, it's I think that, like, the relationship that I had with Mike and Jeff was like almost like, I felt like there were moments where I was like, is this actually happening? When I have to suffer a lot in the industry to then eventually get to something as rewarding as this relationship was, because like there was this openness to, because like as they were writing the script, there were moments where they were like, okay, we have this page that has this joke, but the joke could be better, and then we would just like brainstorm in a room with the purpose of like making each other laugh. Like I think that's something that I bring from like doing improv for 20 years. It was like, I want to, if I break them and I make them laugh, that's a good sign. And but it also extended to the rest of the story team. I think that like there was this like nice feeling that Mike and Jeff created, where like we also, like, it's funny, it's like it's a weird balance of like, as a story department, it should feel like one mind, but at the same time, if everyone can have ownership of their scene, that will be amazing. And they feel like, oh yeah, this feels like because I can see scenes and be like, that's a Hannah Cho scene, that's a Vitaly scene, that's a Caitlin scene. But it was always, I make it very simple, but it's always like a struggle to get to that. But we're all in it together. It all makes, like, there were moments where like the tone of the film was like going into like R-rated, and then we would have to bring it, oh, it's too R-rated, and then it turned into a G movie, and we're like, oh, what's going on? And it's just like trying to figure out what the story was gonna be. But it was it felt it's, I don't know, it was really rewarding to just be able to be like, like, hey, I literally could come up on a Sunday at 3 a.m. and, hey Mike, I had this idea, it's really crazy. And it's like, did I wake you up? It's like, no, you didn't wake me up. Show me the idea. And it would either work or not. But like there was a really nice environment of like, go crazy, and it was really rewarding. Yeah.
Well, and this is a long production process, and I know there was a little bit of delay there with COVID, and I'm sure with switching from working from home during COVID, but it was around 6 years. And so was the kernel of the idea and the story there from the beginning, or what were some major beats or anything? Did anything change kind of from the beginning as you got to the end that kind of surprised you, or where did the story ever take kind of a turn from where you originally began with the idea?
I mean, you guys could totally jump in after this, but it's just, I mean, it really was, I will say, from maybe the second draft that me and Jeff ever did, it was pretty much the same broad story until the end, except it just got way, way, way better. And it got way better because Lindsey designed Katie to be really vibrant and alive, and that character design in every scene is like different than if it's not. Like if you see early versions of the movie, Katie was like kind of lame and had a mullet, and it was like a gross look. And it was like, and it wasn't even, but it's like, that's the power of character design, because it's like seeing the way Katie looks, you're like, oh, I understand who she is, and everything she says has context because of that. And like Guillermo boarding things like a superhero, like the world's greatest cinematographer, like all that stuff, like elevates the movie. And and then Chris and Phil like beating it up, and me and Jeff rewriting every scene until our fingers were literally cartoon bones. Like it was this long process, but it really was sort of like everyone just had a great attitude and wanted to make something great, and everybody felt like they were. It was also, importantly, we didn't have any turds on the team. Like everyone was really nice. And no one was like, I'm mad about this or whatever. Like everyone was like, how can I help? Best idea wins. Let's keep making this thing better. And that attitude will get you far, I think.
Actually, I can.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Go
wanted to add to that in regards to like, I wanted to talk about the Furby scene because that one kind of like started one way, and then there was
Please.
a moment where it wasn't gonna be the Furby. Like there was a long time where like I was boarding, we boarded the Furby scene. And I was like, this is great. I was like, this is gonna happen, and I would look at Mike, be like, hey, are we legally okay to use the Furby? And he was like, yeah, dude, it's all good, good, good. Just keep boarding it. And so we would board it, and we like, this is super exciting. I just want to check we're good, and he's like, absolutely. And then there were moments where like, hey, so Hasbro hasn't gotten back to us, and it was this moment of like, is the Furby not gonna happen? And then throughout the middle of the development of this film, like there were like other like substitute Furbies in case like Hasbro like never called or something. And there was like a Tickle Me Melmo type like character that was like an Immortan Joe from like Mad Max that he ran all the he was the lead the warlord who controlled all the appliances in the mall. There was like a Kawaii Kitty who was like a Hello Kitty spoof, and then people liked it, but then I think when Hasbro was like, oh yeah, sorry, I was busy, and then they actually gave us the right, allowed us to work on Furby. We showed the Furby scene again in a screening at the studio, and it was like this explosion of people going, "Yes, he's back!" And it was just like, but it was a funny. It's funny seeing how it started, and then how it was about to change completely, and then it went back to what it used to be.
Well, and also the other thing too is like we also had to just make it work because it's like we had it in there, and it was like we had like 12 jokes in a row that were all based on the same premise, which is like, oh, it's a cute toy, but it says, I'm going to eat your bones or whatever. There was Jeff invented a character called Collecting Carl, who he's like, I'm collecting Carl. I'm going to collect your bones. Sadly, gone but not forgotten, Collecting Carl.
Spin-off. Yeah.
But you know, and we just realized like, oh, we're wasting this joke on these other things that aren't the Furby, and the Furby's the funniest thing. So we needed to sort of like adjust the comedy and the stakes around it to make it work, and also to make it a character scene, because ultimately that scene is about the family coming together a little bit, and if it and you see them all kind of jump on the rope together, and they're starting to form a connection, and it's almost working, and because of that, like the scene works instead of it's just like you're watching it and you're like, what is happening? You know, like it somehow makes just enough sense, like just enough sense.
Well, and that's this question will have the longest answer of any, but like as a like the counterpoint to that scene is the Minimart scene, the Dino Stop scene, which also like was in the movie from the beginning. We always had them getting attacked by robots in some small relatable location, like a Minimart gas station somewhere on the road, and then being stuck there. And the first time Guillermo boarded it, it was a thing of beauty. It was like a single tracking shot. Mike always said it's like Children of Men, but funny. Like, and Guillermo just like nailed it. It was so good, but it didn't work because it wasn't about the right story point. And it took us a long time to figure out like, oh, this is about the family realizing that they don't know how to work together, that they're all individuals, and actually a long shot that unifies them all in the frame is the opposite of idea of what we want. Like they need to be comparing themselves to the Posey family. And so it's a lot of like, the story was there, those scenes were there, but you can write the same scene 100 different ways and try it out so many different ways, and that's what the 6 years was.
Yeah.
I want to chime in on the Furby thing, because I remember the moment when Mike like told us that he got the rights to Furby. Like, what a big deal it felt like, and not just because like we like love the Furby and have this, but like that is not easy to ask like Hasbro to have the toy shooting lasers and all this stuff. And there's so many points, like that's a great example for like there's so many things that like most people would have been like, I understand this, no, and I understand that we can't do it. But there was like with Mike and everybody this great energy of like this passion that didn't kind of take like at those points when you can be like, oh yeah, this thing won't work or whatever. There was like this drive and this kind of passion for if something makes it better and feels right, so like really kind of fight for it. And there was a lot of fearlessness, and it wasn't like the first thing was like, oh yeah, we can't do that legally, so we're not going to do it. It was like, no, we're going to try and like write a ton of letters and pull it off. So I remember being like, this is going to be really cool. You know what I mean? Like we're in really good hands. We've got this team, whether it's Mike, Jeff, Guillermo, everybody, Chris and Phil, that is just so passionate to kind of make the best thing and take chances and, you know, isn't staying in a box when it feels like sometimes we can't do that. We have to do this other version of it. So I remember being really proud of the movie when the Furby was definitely going to exist. I remember that feeling like a really big day.
I'm so happy we talked about the Furby scene because I had like 5 questions on it that I tossed out because I'm like, we don't have time for this. And we spent like 10 minutes answering every single one of them because they're
the only ones that
I had
matter.
so many questions about the inception of that and how do you get the rights and all that stuff. Like, no, it's boring. We don't have time for that. And you guys just, yes. I was just fanboying out there for a bit. So appreciate it. But I want to also get into characters and design because, you know, we're kind of landing there a little bit, but specifically with Katie and, you know, representation. And what I love about this is that Katie is queer and how you approach this, it wasn't done as like a plot device. It really wasn't something that drove anything. She just was, and she just was accepted. And I love that about that. And I know it's been talked about. You did an incredible talk with Glad, but I really want to talk about a little bit about the idea, how you came to that, not when you're probably writing the character, but also I'm guessing with the design, you alluded a little bit to that, Mike. But Lindsey, I'm guessing you did a bit of design work on her and you guys started to kind of feel this is who she is and she should be represented like this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Lindsey or Mike. Yeah.
I'll start.
You start, and then I can continue.
Yeah. No, yeah, because I mean that was just because, you know, like I said, we were always trying to be observational with the movie, and and we had a bunch of LGBTQ plus team members, and they're like, "Is Katie gay? She seems gay," and we're like, and she was based on all these, you know, friends that me and Jeff loved that went to art school that were gay. And we're like, oh, that would make sense, but I don't know. Are we allowed to do that? Is somebody going to throw us in jail? And they're like, no, you idiot, just do it. And they were like, that would be really meaningful to us to do it. And it was like, oh, great. And then so we just had to figure out how to do it right and have it do the character justice and stuff. And then one of our, you know, team members was like, you know, my hair is blonde and my eyes are green, and I like girls, and I like rock climbing, and I like, you know, that's just one small part of who I am, and the movie should feel like that. And everybody kind of said that down the line. So, you know, and then when sort of we were designing, it was around that time that we were having those conversations that we were starting to design Katie, and it sort of like, again, it was just the same thing where we're just trying to be observational, and you know, we're looking at a lot of girls who are going to art school, and you know, and a lot of our friends and stuff, and they, you know, a lot of them were gay.
Yeah, I think from my perspective too, and one thing that I like is how natural it was. It's like the headline for Katie wasn't about that. It was just about her being this funny, creative, bold filmmaker. And when I was in the early days, even just looking at references, I feel like the people, whether it was from my childhood, friends of the family who were in high school at that age that felt like her when I was just character designing, looking for people that are the right kind of energy and poses. Most of them were, most of my reference points were, and it was mostly just for who they were as people, whether it's artists, etc. And so I think that kind of, came into it, and it almost felt like she kind of came out naturally to us, where she just kind of felt like it, I think, in us being really specific. And like Mike was saying, that question of like, can you do that as a filmmaker if that's not like your identity? And so it was really great that the crew was really honest about how they felt about it. And I think that kind of, you know, emboldened us to celebrate and tell that story. And we love how it makes it her more specific. We love celebrating that about her, and, you know, and that it's not a point of conflict with the family. I think it's really nice. Yeah.
Well, and same, you know, we found that everything specific about her as a character sort of made people feel closer to her, where it's like, you know, when Lindsey did the, you know, drawing on her pants, there was some, you know, publicity person in Korea that was like, I drew on my pants when I was a kid, you know, and when she was gay, people were like, oh, that she's like me, you know, and when she, you know, draws, you know, writes on her hand notes to herself, people were like, I've done that, you know. So all the little specific things that we added, I felt like people were like seeing themselves in her because of it.
Yeah, it's somehow when you're more specific, you oddly are relatable. You know what I mean? Because it seems like it's so specific and so true to yourself, and only I did this stuff. And then when you put it into a film, you write into a story, it's like, oh no, there's thousands, millions of other people who also did
totally.
this, right? I only drew in my pants. That's weird. It's like, well, actually, no, we all draw in our pants as artists. Like, you know, we draw on everything. We draw on walls, we draw on whatever. And I want to bring up the just as we start getting into character design, just the overall kind of visual language, if we can bring up the brushstrokes image, because it's such a specific. I mean, we haven't seen anything like this really in animation before. We've seen other people try to attempt it a little bit, but never in really a full feature film. But if you can talk about a little bit about just the visual design, the language that you used, and kind of what that what that all brought to this.
Yeah, we spoke about like sets a little bit earlier, and so I feel like this is like the stylization version of the same type of thing, where it's like, how do we celebrate humans, the human hand? So it's like the human hand of mark making. And I think also kind of philosophically, like we're a humans versus machines movie. And while we love the innovation that we have with this advanced 3D software, it's like we don't want it to be like a perfect photoreal reflection or perfect straight lines. We want to preserve that feeling of something being handmade. So it's in like the modeling shape language. It's in the edge lines that's on everything. And then everything's hand painted. There's hand painted textures in the light fall off so that it really sits in that world and doesn't feel like something hand painted with like photoreal lighting on top. And so, yeah, we had an amazing collaboration with our team at ImageWorks and an amazing VFX, visual effects supervisor, Mike Lasker. And so it was a really lovely collaboration where I'd be like drawing kind of these inky marker swatches, sharing it with the team, and they'd kind of pull that into how they would render. And so it felt, yeah, like an extension of seeing human hands. And it also kind of totally felt right for Katie too. So the marks are a little, messier. There's a scribbly energy to it. So we're just always being really specific about how can everything connect to a story reason. So it's kind of watercolory, but it's not also like a soft, beautiful one. It has a little bit more of a hand to it that feels like it connects to Katie's sensibility. And so, yeah, so we love that it could be kind of handcrafted, and we were just so excited about like how can we use this amazing team, these amazing tools to tell it our story in a way that, and visually that it's bespoke to this story, instead of like, we loved that there wasn't a house style or an expectation of that. And so we were, and also coming into this really great place too, where like we said before, Chris and Phil, I think we're really supportive of, do what you love and do it more and go harder and stuff. And so we really tried to push it as much as we can. And there were points kind of like the Furby thing where it was like, we can't do lines and hand painted texture and this. There's like, we broke it down to these variables, and I don't know that we can afford that. But then it's like, we had enough of that kind of spirit of like, well, here's what makes the movie so much better, and let's get it all in there. And we got a look that we love, and we were able to kind of get all of those ideas. And I think we all had reasons like kind of why they were important to the storytelling. And so we're really happy with what all that look hopefully adds to the feel of the movie as a whole.
Well, and one thing to add to that quickly is just I think one of the reasons why we're able to do it, and this might sort of like be broadly applicable to sort of software stuff, which is just like, we had this goal in mind. And then we talked to the people who were literally making the software to tell you if the goal could happen or not. And they were like, no. And then we're like, oh, well, come on. What was this just going to look like The Incredibles or something? It's like The Incredibles is great, but that was years ago, And then
and they're incredible.
By the way, we love The Incredibles. I don't want to be but anyway, but it was just like that looked great, but we want to do something different. And they were like, no. So, but we're like, well, how would you do it if you had to do it? And they're like, oh, you're asking me? Yeah, I'd probably try to make this shader, and then all of a sudden you're like talking to them as an artist and not like a representative of a company. You know what I mean? Like, oh, here's the budget. Can you do it for this budget? And then they're like, no, we cannot. But if you're like, hey, artist, how would you do this shading tool? And they're like, that's interesting. Bust out a piece of paper, and all of a sudden they're thinking of it like, oh, I'm an artist and I'm part of the process. And I will say this movie looks so wild, and it costs way less than a lot of other animated movies. And it was just through, I remember one time Jeff was in the room, and then they were talking about the budget. Everyone was like holding their head on their temples, and they're like, we just don't have the money. And then Jeff was like, is there a column on there for the power of the human spirit? And everyone's like, shut up, kid, you're an idiot. But honestly, we did. I mean, a lot of it was the power of the human spirit, and just us sort of like pushing past, you know, and just sort of like saying please and being nice enough for long enough, and eventually people caved.
Yeah, and we feel like when there's a reason, I'm sorry, it's like a little easier too, where it's like, oh, here's why, like the Mitchell's dinner table, it needs to have all this stuff on it, and here's how it makes you feel, or it transports you or something. And then like your artists that are set dressing are like, yeah, and I want it like this in every shot, and and they're bringing that inspiration that's not in that spreadsheet column. And I think, yeah, there was, like Mike was saying too, like I got to go up to Vancouver and meet with the ImageWorks team. And when you're sitting talking to the artists that are doing it and just looking at art, or looking at like, isn't it cool how like markers this kind of watercolor edge bleed? And so it was nice that, yeah, everybody got to kind of bring their art, their artistry to it. And all when you kind of know why you're doing it and what it does for the storytelling, it like lets everybody kind of join and push it further.
Yeah.
If we can bring up Katie Vision, because this kind of ties into it, the Katie Vision piece. It's so ridiculous and incredible, and makes no sense and then all the sense at the same time. And I want to know, I mean, from an animation standpoint, and having studied animation, I know that keeping a character on model and kind of, following the rules of this world that you're set, like what was that kind of book or Bible that you had to follow in terms of, these are the rules of the world, this is when we do it, this is when we don't, when you decide to pull back? I know you touched upon it a little bit, but just particularly when you go into Katie Vision, or you're trying to keep a character on model, and you're starting to run into these, I'm guessing, issues, where was there like a tough scene or anything that you ran into where it was like, oh God, this is just not working, or we're pushing it too far, besides Furby?
Yeah.
I mean, the only rule is there was no rules.
Yeah, no, it's truly.
But
yeah,
I mean, it was sort of like you try everything, and then you sort of see, you're like, oh, what if it's in this scene? What if it's in this scene? What if it's this scene? And then you sort of start to retroactively learn rules from like what is broken, where you're like, oh, this feels like ornamentation instead of like what the character's feeling like. But when I see that Katie's looking at the college, and it's like rainbows are shooting out of it, and it's like, oh, that's subjectively her point of view, then I feel closer to her as a character, as opposed to like I'm like repelled by these like bouncing Cheetos balls that have nothing to do with the story, because when it reflected her character, that's when it worked. But we only figured that out by just trying all kinds of shit that was bad and didn't work.
Yeah, I think there's like an overall where like seeing more of Katie's film point of view kind of connects to her like emotional journey. So trying to like find spots where it's like she's really excited to go to film school, and then that kind of goal gets crushed. So we're kind of trying to look at that big picture, but yeah, letting it be really free and playful for the style of it. Literally the rules kind of it had to have this kind of spontaneity and freedom, almost like when you're making like an Instagram story or something and you're putting stuff in it. It feels kind of collagey, because it's a movie where we're touching on themes about technology, and she's someone who uses technology as a tool to make art. So some of that feeling. So it was like, let's mix in photos with like the in-world kind of render style and 2D things, and having things be of more different styles is part of it being consistent. Like if things were too many things that were like a 2D animation, it starts to go into this other space where it feels like something different. So usually that felt better than if you add like a stock photo, or if it's something that's a little bit more of a low res piece with a watermark. And so like layering things having a lot of density, where if you're kind of rewarded if you look longer, there'll be little hidden text that kind of shows that feeling of someone who loves making things, and they're constantly doodling, and they're sitting and they're doing it because they love it. That kind of passion needed to kind of come forward. So those were a lot of the elements, but part of it too was like the on model stuff. It's not consistently like on model in a like an academic professional way, because it wasn't supposed to be. So it's like letting anatomy be kind of weird, having it have the feeling of you're not doing it with tools that have like sophisticated line weight or have squash and stretch. So it's like letting it, embracing that, in that test that you showed too. Like I studied computer animation, and I learned how to animate, and I had a long period where I was trying to do that academically. And I wasn't a good animator, and I kind of found the space for me in design. But when I was doing that, it was like, how do you just draw from your gut and have fun and draw it till it makes you laugh, and not doing it to be like academically correct? And it kind of inspires something a little bit by just kind of how weird it is. And I wouldn't like redraw those little possums and stuff. And so that kind of was a target that I kind of showed then to our artists. And it was like, okay, yeah, do this. And the anatomy can be weird. And they ran with it and did a lot of really great stuff just by embracing that Katie character spirit.
Yeah, no, it's so unique and it's so incredible. It's like everything in someone's mind just like was dumped onto a page. It's like the kaleidoscope of the dad just going around, and it's ridiculous in the best of ways. We're going to take some audience questions here in a little bit, but I want to get to the Stealth Bots video as well. It's a little bit longer piece, but what I love is kind of the technology that you probably behind this, and because they're very unique, that they're coming apart and they have pieces moving and can go in any direction and shooting off of them and morphing and stuff. And so kind of want to talk a little bit about the design of these and the technology kind of that was had brought. Because once you came up with a story idea, it's like, okay, we want to do this and this is what they're doing. Okay, now we actually have to figure out how to make this work. So if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I will, unless somebody else wants to. Yeah, no, I think the with this, again, this is one of those things where we're trying to sort of both be really observational with the humans and really wild and innovative with the robots, because sort of that is sort of like our space of like kind of fantasy where you could really like go bananas. And I remember telling the animators, I'm like, guys, look, there's going to be a lot of naturalistic acting, but I promise you'll be able to go nuts when the robots come out. And then this is sort of like our head of animation, like daring me to like, all right, how nuts can we get? And it was really cool because it was like one of these situations where the head of animation was just like, hey, can I try some stuff over the weekend? And then we're like, yeah, sure, great. And then he came back with this, and again, it was that same situation like before where, instead of like sitting him down and saying the robots need to look exactly like this, it was like the robots need to be terrifying and need to move in a way that I've never seen before. What do you got? And that, and in reference to, in response to that prompt, people will do amazing things. If I would have said like, hey, do it like this one movie, it would be crappy, but sort of like Alan was able to sort of like, and he came up with 20 ideas and, 8 were rad. And we picked the best one of the 8, it was more like there were 10 ideas and 8 were rad, but they were all rad. Come on, I don't know what I'm doing. 8 would work. I was like, oh, I think these will work. Anyway, but yeah, and I just think sort of like that is sort of the lesson I really feel like we learned over and over again from coming from TV, because like me and Jeff worked in TV, and in TV it's like go, we don't have time. Shut up. Like get in the fucking car. Sorry, I'm swearing someone. But in feature, and I'm guessing in sort of software development, the same thing where you're able to sit down and talk to people and bring their ideas out, because it's like if you have a situation where the best idea wins, you'll get magic out of people that you would never get if you tried to be prescriptive. Like there's so many times where Jeff like wrote the funniest thing in the world that I never would have thought of, because I was like, I don't know, what do you think? How would you write the scene? And then it would be like 10 times better. Or same thing with Guillermo, where it's like some of the best boarded scenes are just like him like going wild, where it's like the live your life scene at the end, and Linda freaking out, like all the memorable visual moments are like from Guillermo. Not all.
Well, the uninterrupted eye contact scene, and then the introduction of Aaron and saying hi, going through the phone book, and hey, you want to talk about dinosaurs? It's like I don't know. There's just such like specificity in this film, and fun little moments in the writing, and the characters that immediately you know who these characters are within 5 seconds of watching their scenes, and when you're talking about story development and working with the animators, so Guillermo and Jeff and Mike and Lindsey, just when you're working with animators, so when you're writing the story, you're talking with them and you're saying, okay, these robots need to look like this, and so are they saying, hey, we want the robot to do this, we want their arms to come apart, we want these pieces, and then are you then going away and like infusing that into the story and coming up with new scenes? And was there anything like that that back and forth with animation specifically as related to story?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of moments. In the beginning, it was a very interestingly nebulous era where we're like, I don't know what exactly the city's gonna look like. Maybe the stealth bus would look like this. Like there was this like, we'll just draw them. We'll draw whatever. But then when Lindsay and her team started showing up, I was like, oh, that looks like that. Okay, cool. And then I informed the storyboards. But then all of a sudden, like the storyboards inform her, and then all of a sudden you have this like cycle happening that eventually it expanded into animation, where like once it started getting animated, we started seeing a little bit more of like, oh, that's like we would have our own way of acting in storyboarding, but then they would inject some acting into the animation that would then inform us of like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of cool if like if we start like implementing this a little bit on who Katie is. And it's funny, like there's a couple of versions of the movie where like it's Katie has a mullet and then she has like the the hair that she has right now. And then my dream was just to remove the mullet as much as possible. Nothing against people who have mullets, but my only reason why I hated the mullet is because when I drew it, it was because I don't know how to draw long hair. And every long hair I draw, it looks like a mullet. People are like, "Ooh, mullet, nice." I'm like, I just don't know how to draw long hair.
It wasn't a true mullet, but it was mullet-ish.
There are moments where I was like, "Ooh, that's a crazy party in the back right there." But yeah, no, it's yeah. As the movie progressed, at least in our story sense, like I was like, okay, this is really informing us. It's since story kind of almost, especially in this movie, like it was almost all the way to the end. Even when the movie was like all solidified, I would be like walking, and then this guy in a trench coat goes, "Guillermo." I'm like, oh, hey, Mike. Say, hey, so we're doing one last joke for this scene. And I'm like, okay, let's go. And so the movie would be done and we'd just like be storyboarding and coming up with ideas. Like one of the jokes was when Linda goes, get those robots. And as the robots go like, I got one. Me too. Yay. That was like almost like a week or 2 weeks before the movie was blocked or something. So, yeah. Yeah.
That's great. We're going to go to some audience questions. So one of them from Jessica was, what level of your personalities or personal context was utilized in the character development? Which I think, we saw some of that, but was there anything kind of infused? Obviously, Mike, Rick being your dad and so forth, but like what from each of you kind of was infused in each of the characters of the story?
I've talked about
like
Jeff.
No, like I remember, being a kid, and my dad loved country music, and I would listen to it with him, and he would play the song "The Thunder Rolls" by Garth Brooks, which is a very depressing song about domestic issues. But as a kid, I'm just like, oh, I like the sound of this. This is cool, and I like knew all the words. I was like a precocious 5-year-old who could sing that, but my dad would like get such a kick out of it, and his like buddies would come over. He'd be like, Jeff, sing the Thunder Rolls for them. And like there came a point where we're like, oh, we need to know what success looks like to Rick. Like if he wins his daughter back, if he wins that, like what is that like? What is that memory from his childhood that he holds on to? And I was like, I've got one. The Thunder Rolls, like singing a song together, like bonding over a piece of music and what that means. And then that morphed into what that became in the film. But it was a lot of like narrative needs and then finding those details from our lives to plug the holes,
Totally.
Yeah, my mom actually, I still remember my mom going like, you got F's in every class when I was in high school. And I was like, well, I don't want to do what you want me to do. I want to do art. And her face did this like very intense face, which ended up inspiring me to draw Linda when she like went my sweet boy. Those, like those eyes were like so like there's elements of my parents in certain places, but definitely I try to inject as much of my mom into Linda. But yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's like, I feel like there's a lot of alignment kind of with all of us. So there's some things where it's almost hard to trace. Like I think this was a specific thing coming from Mike and Jeff, but then it kind of resonated. I think for me, it's like in some of the details, whether it's the set or the character design details. of like, and this is one where I'm like, I don't know if this was a Mike and Jeff thing, but like Aaron like chews on his shirt out of like nervousness, but that totally like resonates where I was always as a kid chewing on my hair and chewing on like drawstrings to my jacket. So you're like, oh yeah, I get this. He'd be like this, or this thing seems like a thing. There's kind of little things that follow Aaron, whether it's like placing little tiny dinosaurs all around him in weird ways, or like at the dinner table when we were like set dressing what's on each person's plate. Like he only has like chicken nuggets and mashed potatoes and everyone else has like vegetables and stuff. And like I was a super picky eater and my parents were always whatever, we'll just give you some like chicken nuggets. And there's like fast food bags in my head. I'm like, he's not eating it. So there's that, which isn't even a story point, but it's just like when we're kind of infusing the set with things, there's things, I think some of in Katie's, there's like a level of chaos that's there of someone who's like really in a project, and then there's just like snacks and cups on the floor, and that definitely is familiar to my experience. So there's a lot of that stuff, and some of it's too just putting anything that feels familiar. Sometimes it's like branded snacks in the sets and spaces that are like familiar, you know, like I ate a ton of Cheez-Its all the time growing up, and there's like a fake Cheez-It box. So you end up just kind of putting things like this thing feels like them in the way that they overlap with me. And so there's tons of little details like that.
Yeah, gotcha. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. So next question is from Lisa. She and a couple of these are a little bit the same, going to kind of merge them. But we'll start with Lisa's, which is her son graduated from Cal Arts in character animation. He's interested in story. What advice would you give to break into the industry? And then there's another one here, which is about like from Wei Ling, which is my 7-year-old son loves the Mitchells versus the Machines, has been trying to draw storyboards and comics. So I suggest how a young kid can learn about storytelling. So I think those are not necessarily similar, but kind of cover the same ground. And that, if you just graduated college or you're looking to get into an animation, what path would you follow? And I know it's never A to B or similar paths, but any kind of advice you give there, but also for young kids who may now be interested as we all once were.
Yeah.
Or go ahead, Cameron.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, like, in regards to storyboarding, one thing I do see a lot is I see a lot of portfolios where we have like they spend a lot of time on like on making sure that it looks clean and presentable and it looks like it just came out of an art book, but then it's deprived of like the voice of the artist. And I do think sometimes story students just make like they just want to make like a chase sequence, and it's like, but what is that chase sequence telling me? Like, so like I always say that, like, if I have a portfolio of someone who has like, really good draftsmanship, and then I have another portfolio of someone who has, okay draftsmanship, then what's that called? Then I will go for that one. I will go okay draftsmanship, but like they have a really good voice. I will always go for that one. So I think, just like adding some of you in there, because I'm at the end of the day, I would just want you as a team. Like, this is like, these are the boards from this guy called Vitaly Strokas, who, if you look at the boards, they're pretty rough, but you get the point. Like, you understand everything, and you understand what's going on. Like, there's cars jumping out of a cliff and then piling up at the bottom and stuff like that, and then paws are gonna take them away. And then another thing is that I would just watch a lot of films. One thing that does happen a lot is that people just watch a lot of animated movies and base their portfolio on storyboards on that. If you're wondering, like, where do I start? Just start with like the AFI top 100 and then just go through the list, or like, something I used to do was like, there was certain films that I really liked, and I like, for example, I'm a big fan of action movies, and I would just like pick my favorite action movie, and I would just kind of start thumbnailing each shot. I would pause it, thumbnail it, and then just like do the process of try to think like the director. Like, why did the director cut right there? Like, why did the director leave the camera following this person? Like, and just start creating those questions. You start slowly turning yourself into a filmmaker. And I think those two things, and maybe Mike and Jeff can or Lindsey can add, but like, I think those two things are like the very important elements of a good portfolio. And also, don't do like 90 pages of a story portfolio, because I've seen some that are like, just give me 90 pages. I'm like, just give me like your best stuff. And if your best stuff is like 10 pages, even better. So
yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think, like, when I look at portfolios, or when I look at someone's website, especially with like VizDev artists and that, first section I look at is their personal work. Is just like who are they? What is their voice? What are their interests? What do they do for fun? Like, who are they as an artist? Like, and I think that's the reason Mike hired Lindsey. It wasn't like her production work that she had done for DreamWorks. It was her gifts that she made of her and her grandma, and what was in that was exactly what Mike was trying to accomplish. So the point being, like, be your authentic self. And to the 7-year-old who's starting to draw, like, don't try to draw right. Don't try to draw correct. Try to draw what's fun to you and what's exciting to you, and find your own voice, because that's what will get you hired, and that's what will give you more longevity than anything else.
I have one more thing to say in regards to the portfolio thing. Sorry, is an advice I would give people is that, like, throughout the week, a lot of funny, bizarre things that made you go, "Huh, that was a kind of a weird thing," happened to you. And if there's some of them that you're like, "Well, that'd be kind of funny if I just make it like a little comic strip or some sort of animatic or storyboards based on that," you can 100% do that. That's because if like, for example, I did an animatic. I have of me like trying clothing at a Gap, and I used to my button shirts used to like be very tight on me, and you would see the buttons breaking, and I'm like, oh my god, this is so embarrassing. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make a little short of like what it is from the point of view of the button that's holding on to the shirt, And so it was just really bizarre, but it was very personal. And I heard people going like, oh my god, that happens to me all the time, and I'm like, oh, that's great. And so I think by doing little comic strips or doing drawings of things that happen to you, you get to start seeing more of your voice. Because I've seen a lot, like you said, like I've seen a lot of people who like send me their portfolios, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I go straight to their Instagram, and I'm like, where the hell was this? So yeah.
Oh. And real quick, also for the little kids out there, like, just tell stories. Like, when I was a kid, I had a comic book that I made on a Xerox machine and sent it to my friends, and also when I was at CalArts, like, you make 4 films, and in those 4 films you fail and then learn from your mistakes, and then make new mistakes, and then learn from those, and you get better and better and better and better. So, like, if you could set a sort of a plan for yourself to just make work on a regular basis, like, tell little stories, no matter if they're Instagram comics or regular comics or that you send to people, or little films that you make that are like, all right, I'm going to make a 15-second film every week. You will get better, especially if you show it to people and say, how can I get better? What do you think? I was going for this. Did I hit it? That'd be my advice.
And Lindsey, how about you?
Yeah, I guess I just add quickly to, I don't know. Yeah. Like Mike was saying, you'll fail, you won't get it. Just kind of keep doing it, and if you hold on to that love of why you like to do it and aren't comparing yourself to other people too much, or aren't too fixated on how do I like do this thing that's right for a portfolio. All those things are, not necessary, but if you can kind of hold on to kind of what is your voice? Why do you like doing it? Show it to people. This stuff is fun as it exists in the space of like having an audience, making somebody laugh, making somebody feel something. That's what we're doing ultimately when we're making this stuff. So if you're, sometimes maybe making a comic for your friend or on a card or whatever, all those kind of interactive ways, I think can serve to know if something works or not, to see what your audience thinks of it. People give you advice, but it also feels like a big part of what we're doing when we're storytelling. So show it to people, makes it for people kind of know, find your voice and find what makes you like to do this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. We are at time, but I like I said, I absolutely love the film. It is #1 in my son's heart, and Logan's. He's 5 years old, and
Cool.
me being 38, I love the film as well. And so it's just such an incredible film. And I know you guys are probably absolutely exhausted after 6 years of production, doing all the press for the film as it comes out during a pandemic, and now you're on it again right before and during award season. So I know it's a lot for all of you, but I really, really appreciate you doing this. And I know the Oscars are coming up, and where you are nominated for Best Animated Feature, as well as
I've never heard of that.
It's a small awards ceremony, but huge deal. Just an absolutely beautiful masterpiece of a film. And cannot thank you enough for taking the time out today to do this. And please, The Mitchells versus the Machines is on Netflix, so you can watch that right now if you want.
We need the clicks, man, guys. We get paid by the click.
I swear, my son is giving you clicks at every morning, every evening when I give him way too much screen time. So I promise you, they're
heavy belt. Thank you. All right,
thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Good luck, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you.